Hello YouTube, it's Ryan here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another Bleach review. Today we're going to be looking at the Soul Society Rescue arc, which is 118 to 183. This is, what is that, like 60 chapters worth of content, and it's the last part of Soul Society in Bleach. So, yeah, I'm going to skip the book facts because you can just go watch the first video in the series if you want to know them. Also, at this point, I think most people know about Tite Kubo and all of the, demographic stuff associated with Bleach. So, yeah, the premise of this part of the story, it's that it's time to learn how to do Bankai, or how to unleash Bankai, specifically for Ichigo, and finally rescue Rukia. And then that rescue plot eventually evolves into solving the murder plot and setting up the next arc. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens here, but also a lot of it is just fights again, like in the previous arcs. So, yeah. So the plotline starts with Ichigo getting healed with Yoruichi. They're hiding somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but it's like another underground hidden area to train, similar to the one Uruhara has under his shop. And apparently Yoruichi is a woman. Of course, we already know this, but Ichigo learns it for the first time after she explains to him how she got him out of there. And then they go to this giant cave place to train. Ichigo has 3 days to train, and he's using a training technique that Uruhara developed / used for himself in order to develop his Bankai as quickly as possible. Now, I don't know if this has to do with holification, because I think Ichigo does deal with holification here, but I don't remember if that happens like to be an interesting, important point here. But I do think it is brought up because Aizen and Uruhara are two sides of the same coin, kind of. So, yeah, he has 3 days to train, and he meets with Sangetsu, his Bankai, and or his Sanpakuto, and Sangetsu sets up this trial. 1,000 different swords drop to the ground, and each of them represents an aspect of Ichigo's soul, and Ichigo has to find the one that represents Sangetsu and use it to beat Sangetsu in order for Sangetsu to be willing to unleash his Bankai form for Ichigo. So, yeah, as this is happening, Uryu and Urahime are fighting Mayuri Kurosuchi, who is the captain of the 8th squad, and he's also the mad scientist character, because you always had to have a mad scientist character in some way in your manga. In One Piece, you have like 3 of them. You have you have Caesar Clown, you have Queen, Vegapunk, there's someone else, Judge. Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 different mad scientist characters in One Piece. In Naruto, of course, you have Orochimaru, and Karatsuchi is basically the Orochimaru type character of this story. Although Gin looks like Orochimaru, but this guy acts like Orochimaru, if that makes sense. And Uryu has this awesome fight here where he sacrifices his powers, and the reason why he has this awesome fight and why he sacrifices his powers is because we learned that Kurosuchi actually killed like 2,000 different Quincy's, and so Uryu's main and only enemy really is Kurosuchi, and so they have a big battle. Kurosuchi unleashes his Shikai and then his Bankai, which is this giant creepy baby thing, and Kurosuchi is a horrible person. He's also really crazy, but he's kind of like a very interesting evil scientist character, and Uryu has this big battle with him. He almost wins, but he doesn't actually manage to kill Kurosuchi, so Kurosuchi lives to fight another day. Uryu ends up poisoned, and he's actually helped by Kurosuchi's second in command, who is his daughter / his Gigai experiment doll character don't know what to call her, but she helps Uryu with the poisoning in his body. And Uryu sacrifices his powers to let out an attack big enough to harm Kurotsuchi, but also, like I said, he does manage to kill him. And so he starts to lose his powers. And we don't really know where that goes. At least I haven't read far enough for it to mean something yet. But we do know that he loses them, and he, stops being able to use them by the end of the arc. So, yeah, it was a really awesome fight. I really liked it. He gets the antidote, and then he gets captured. And we go back to Ichigo, who is still training. And I think Renji shows up at this point. And he's like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just training by myself here in the corner. And he manages to create his Bankai with Sabimaru at some point during this moment. But it's not released, or it's not told to us that he managed to do it until he goes fight Byakuya later on in the story. So, yeah. While Ichigo's continuing to train, Kenpachi actually helps Orihime to find all of her other friends, break them out of prison, and Kenpachi is partly like our ally for the rest of this part of the story because he respects Ichigo and he wants to be able to fight Ichigo again, and he won't be able to do that if everyone kills him. So there we go. We have an Aizen versus Hitsugaya Toshiro confrontation. It's pretty interesting. There's a lot of people problems in this part of the story. We do learn that Rangiku and Gin have some sort of past together. And the way Rangiku talks about Gin makes me feel like she has romantic feelings for him to some capacity. But I don't think Gin is really able to reciprocate them. But he would play it up in order to get her to think better of him. That's what I'm getting out of it. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't read further in, so I don't know if we ever learn about it or not. But yeah, Aizen and Hitsugaya's battle / situation is a bit convoluted because there's a big break in between two parts of it. But basically, Hitsugaya notices that Momo left. He thinks Momo's gonna go try to kill someone, I think Gin, but then when he gets to where Gin is, he learns that Aizen is there, and then Momo shows up later, and she actually attacks Toshiro Hitsugaya because she thinks that he murdered Aizen because Aizen left her a note that said so, right? So then someone stops her, and he goes on to try to chase Gin and Aizen, but then Aizen comes back and kills Momo, or severely harms her, and then Hitsugaya and Aizen have another fight, but I think Hitsugaya loses, and then at some point Onohana, the leader of the fourth company, and her second in command show up. They figure out what the issue is, and then they report the problem to everyone in the Serete, every other Soul Reaper, sorry. So it sets up the final confrontation at the end, which is against Aizen after the big battles with all the other people that are opposing Ichigo first. So yeah, Renji and Ichigo are still training. Rukia has her background explained with Kayan Shiba, who is the Ichigo lookalike. And I guess she kind of had this romantic attachment to this guy because he treated her nicely, but he was married. And then this guy's wife is killed by a hollow, which Aizen was experimenting on to try to make hollows have Soul Reaper powers, whereas Urahara was trying to get Soul Reapers to have hollow powers. And this hollow actually managed to have a very meaningful intelligence, and he had the ability to turn off Sanpak Toes. And he kills Kayan's wife, and then he kills Kayan after Kayan tries to kill him for revenge. And eventually Rukia has to kill Kayan because he becomes the host of this hollow, and so he has to die. And it really sucks, and it's sad, and it makes Rukia caring about Ichigo make more sense. Then we're back with the 11th Company, who have to do a bunch of little fights. So we have Tozen versus what does it say there? No, sorry, Tozen and Komamura, who are two of the other Gote 13 captains, who are having to fight against the 11th Company. And Renji has to fight Byakuya. And Renji puts up a good fight, but his fight, I think, is overshadowed by Ichigo because it's the same exact plot points and beats, but Ichigo manages to win, at least ideologically, right? So it's really cool that Renji gets to do this, but again, Renji gets his ass beat. So what was the point of having this fight initially when you could have just skipped over directly to Ichigo's fight? I think it's not important to have this fight, but also it kind of still means something because it develops Renji as a character, and also it's just a really cool fight. But, you know, if it comes to deciding to tighten up the story, Renji's fight with Byakuya can go away. So it's cool, but he does lose. So, yeah. Then we have Kenpachi versus Tozen. And then Komamura interferes when Kenpachi's about to kill him. And we get to learn a little bit about them as well. Tozen was this blind guy, and he was in love with this girl. And then I think this girl was actually Cayenne's wife. And he joins the Soul Reapers, the Soul Society, to try to reconnect with her. But he's never able to. And then he decides to follow a path of justice, although he defines justice as the path with least resistance, basically. And so he allies himself with Aizen from the very beginning, whereas he does take this kind of like do what is easy, not what is right kind of approach, which sucks, but it is what it is. And I think Komamura actually steps in to help Tozen out of justice, but then when he learns about Tozen's situation, he kind of turns on him because Komamura is not about Aizen. So it's kind of interesting. Komamura also has a really cool Bankai. It's this like giant armored thing, and I really don't understand how some Bankai actually like work, because some of them are just like, what's it called, like physical beings, and then some of them are like ideological cages, and some of them are like just stronger swords. So it's a really interesting kind of system, but the fact that it's not consistent within itself is a little bit weird sometimes. But you know, it is what it is. Rukia's execution happens, and it's actually stopped right on time by Ichigo. There's this giant Sanpakuto, which I think is the Bankai of Yamamoto's Sanpakuto, because I think it matches. I think Yamamoto's like Sanpakuto is a fire type thing, and the giant javelin used for executions is fire based in some way. So Ichigo stops it, and Shunsui and Ukitake help him for reasons not very clear, but also not unclear. Ukitake used to be Rukia's boss, and Shunsui thinks that justice isn't being served correctly, and they even have a talk with Yamamoto about this later because they have to fight him. And it's basically that Yamamoto thinks justice is absolute, and these guys think that justice isn't being served by killing Rukia. It doesn't really make sense, and it's not very clear, but there is some ideological conflict there. Then we have Yoruichi versus Soifon, which is a pretty good fight. It's basically like where everyone else is samurai, Yoruichi and Soifon are ninja, and I think it's really cool. It works really nicely. So Yoruichi used to be her boss and her teacher and basically her idol as well. And so when Yoruichi leaves to help Uruhara leave from the Soul Society, which we don't exactly know why they leave, but guessing that Uruhara was involved in these very concerning kind of secretive projects, I'm guessing that he decided to leave to protect himself or to avoid having to continue to work on these, because he does actually end up using Rukia to hide one of these tools, and I'm guessing that we're going to learn more about that later, but I don't know, it's a lot of the big plot point things are kind of lost on me sometimes because they're like right in the middle of the fights. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to read this. I want to focus on the fights. And some other times it like bogs down the fight so much that I have to stop and read it. And I don't know, it's not very clear. And it feels like a lot of the exposition dump stuff that should have been earlier in the arc are happening in the climax of the arc. And I don't think that that's good. I don't think it's bad either, but it is, you know, a little bit annoying sometimes. But yeah, Soifon is basically fighting Yoruichi to kind of, because she has a chip on her shoulder about being left behind. They kind of vaguely resolve that, and we moved on from their fight. Then we have Ichigo versus Byakuya, which is really awesome. There's Bankai galore all over the place. They just Bankai and Bankai and Bankai all over the place, and it's really, really good, actually. I really like this fight. But again, Renji already did all of this, so Ichigo's just doing it better. And then Ichigo does manage to win. And we learn about why Byakuya took in Rukia and stuff. And basically it's because Rukia was the younger sister to Byakuya's wife. And they look basically the same. And Byakuya wanted to take her in to fulfill his wife's dying wish. But then he couldn't save her because he had also promised his family to uphold the rules and the laws as much as he could. And so he had an internal conflict. However, the conflict feels a little bit too unnecessary because, like, bruh, your wife is more important than your parents if you already broke their rules, right? Like I don't know. The way he kind of phrased it and the way he set it up doesn't really make sense to me. Like, in this case, the way Tite Kubo set it up doesn't really make sense to me because if Byakuya already broke the rules several times to be with this woman, breaking it one more time for his little sister or for her little sister doesn't seem to be all that big of a deal. So I don't really get why he let it go that far. But, you know, whatever, it's fine. At this point, there's no reason to change it, right? So, yeah. Then we get the reveal of Aizen's plan after Hitsugaya loses. And Onohana, you know, has her lieutenant explain it to everyone. And then we have the climax with the removal of the Hokyoku, which is what Aizen wanted out of Rukia, because Rukia's soul was used to house it by Uruhara. And he takes it out of her, and he just, like, elevators out of Soul Society into Weko Mundo. And then the falling action happens, and they get through recovery and stuff like that, and then they head home. And overall, the climax of the story, of this part of the story, was really good, really enjoyable. There was a lot of moments when I do feel that we were being bogged down by background knowledge and by storytelling and by background of characters so that the fights made sense. But also, there really wasn't any time anywhere else to do it, so it's just part of the structure. And also the fact that Tite Kubo just wanted to have a bunch of action set pieces, and these action set pieces have to be justified, and you can't justify them earlier in the story, so you have to justify them while they're happening, and it's just a normal manga thing to do. But it does harm the climax of this part of the story a bit, because it would have been much better if we didn't get bogged down by these things. So it is what it is. Overall, the plotline was pretty good, and I really did enjoy my time reading it, so I don't really have too much to say. In terms of characters, there's just so many of them, and I didn't really mention them last time because we were just mostly working with the same characters as before, with the addition of Ganju and some of the 11th Company and Hanataro. This time, we basically get more expansion on all of them. Soifon is introduced, Aizen's plan is explained, Gin's relationship with Rangiku is explained, Hitsugaya's relationship with Rangiku and Izuru and Momo is kind of explained as well. Ukitake is introduced and explained, and his relationship with Rukia. Rukia's background is very important to this part of the story. So overall, there's a lot of development of characters. Some of them are better than others, but generally all of them get treated pretty well by Tite Kubo. In terms of world building, there's not really too much going on, but there's just a lot of terminology thrown at you. And I think that this is mostly an issue with the translation and editing, not necessarily with the storytelling. So I'm not sure. Bleach and Naruto and some of the parts of early One Piece And definitely Dragon Ball should definitely get new re-edited versions that are much more in line with what everyone kind of knows and understands nowadays. Because sometimes it's really difficult to read when you're like getting a bunch of random Japanese words thrown at you and then given the English title, and you could have just been like, okay, just give me the English version of these things better, right? So, I don't know. It's also, I think, a little bit because Tite Kubo wants to make all of these attacks and things kind of not necessarily actually symbolic, but have this veneer of symbolism because, you know, like Byakuya's Bankai is like a poem, and he has to say the poem before the Bankai happens. And, you know, there's these attack names that are just really long, and they could have just been translated to English, and only the very key elements kept in Japanese. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on that. In terms of artwork and fan service, it's a little bit of an evolution of the artwork, but there's not too much fan service going on, honestly. And my rating for this is a 4 out of 5. I thought it was really enjoyable, but again, there's limitations to the storytelling because there's so much explanation thrown into this part of the story, and also because it's just not as deep or like well-rounded, I guess, as Naruto and One Piece at this point in their stories, right? So, I don't know. It's not a big deal, but does lose a point in my book. So, yeah, there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your thought, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.